Today's dedication is for Terax, who gave me a very generous 1 year's worth of subscriptions on Patreon. Okay, so once again asking for casual games and seeing some bombs here. That is Uro this time. Yeah, we can Demonic Tutor for like Bitter Blossom or something maybe. We'll just try and keep this. We're on the draw again. Drawing into a mana drain, so just play the Shockland in tapped. Demolition Field for our opponent, and we see a Deeproot Wayfinder. And we managed to draw into a land, so let's just throw down the swamp and... yeah, I'll Demonic Tutor for that Bitter Blossom, I think. Or maybe the Black Market Connections would be better, so that we can actually try and draw into some fairies. The Merfolk swinging in, dealing 2 damage to us. And that will get to Surveil. And in doing so, returning a Wooded Foothills from the graveyard to the battlefield, making additional lands here, going straight to 2 cards in hand, and yeah, has 6 mana available by the end of the turn. Drawing into an island, just drop that into the Black Market Connections, I think. Our opponent obviously didn't surveil anything into the bin previously. Oracle of Muldiah can potentially see lands on the top. That is a Ramanap Excavator. And shuffling that away with the Wooded Foothills shows a Rite of Flourishing. So shuffling that away with the Prismatic Vista, we'll be able to get a fetch back out with the Wayfinder. Showing Exploration on top this time, so not seeing a pocket of lands with Azusa and Oracle on top of the library. Swinging in for 3. Should surveil the Exploration into the bin here. And our opponent does, able to reveal a Guildless Commons, which will mean additional land drops this turn. So plays the Guildless Commons from the top, and that shows us an island which he can play as well. And that reveals a Thought Scour. Straight into Uro on turn 4 with a hell of a lot of mana. Draws into the Thought Scour, and there's a Glenelendra Archmage. Alright, so we're just going to have to put all the life. That is an Otawara. We're going to have to put all the life into this in order to attempt to keep up with our opponent, which, let's face it, it's not happening, is it? Alright, so we'll just go for the dual land in Shipwreck Marsh. We just keep drawing into lands here, unfortunately, in the Fairy Tribal deck. And so maybe go for... yeah, we'll go for a Frantic Search now, just in case we want to do something relevant. Alright, that is a Titan of Lityara. Yeah, discarding Patriarch's Bidding along with another land should be fine. And then obviously untap the 3 lands that we used to cast it. Alright, so we'll just play the Obyra, hold up the mana drain, because we have to deal with the Glenelendra Archmage before that comes down. Drawing into that, and there is a Virtue of Knowledge on top now. Cycling a Lonely Sandbar, so that draws into that, revealing Finale of Devastation on top. Shuffling that away, reveals Avenger, and there is the Glenelendra Archmage. Our opponent probably has counter magic, because why wouldn't he? But we'll go for the mana drain onto this. Should help us with the Titan of Lityara. Okay, so Titan of Lityara is going to cost just 2 blue mana next turn. A Thought Scour. Target player mills 2 cards. They are targeting themselves, obviously so that they can better get out the Uro again. So Ramanap ended back up on top, so it's in the bin along with that Avenger. And it's Bramble Familiar on top of the library now. Sacrificing Waterlord Grove in order to draw a card. So now revealing the Flourishing again. And we can trade for this thing, so I think that's okay to do here. Maybe get rid of the Oracle as well with a Reality Shift. Does mean that the Titan of Lityara isn't as good. But let's go for, at the end of the turn, that Reality Shift onto the Oracle so that it really slows down them playing cards straight off the top. And we know what card this is. This is the Rites of Flourishing that's on top of the, or was on top of the library. Alright, so there is Tegwyl. Black Market Connections is going to cost us 6 life again, I think, because we just have to do something here. Alright, yeah, so just drawing into another land. So we'll drop the Underground River, and let's go for Obyra here. We're playing into a board wipe, but we'll refill our hand with the Titan anyway, so go like that. Into Tegwyl. And we'd be forgiven for thinking that we were about to stabilise here, but like I said, it's not that great a deck. I think our opponents brought too strong a deck to what we were aiming for here. But we did drain our opponent there a little bit, or bleeded our opponent with the Obyra. Don't gain life with this. Let's go for the Titan of Lityara. Been looking to play this card ever since I saw it spoiled. And that sees 4 fairies when it enters play, so We will draw some cards here, bleed our opponent with the Obyra again. Okay, it's other creatures, so we only draw 3 there, but get rid of the Scalding Tarn. There is a Crippling Fear, so hopefully we can hurt our opponent with that. Kindred Discovery should help us get back into this if we can land it. So our opponent drawing into a mystery card, seeing as how we exiled the top card of the library. It's noteworthy that the Titan does trigger on swinging in as well, so we should be able to draw some decent cards with that also. So it might be worth taking a turn off the Kindred and going for Crippling Fear instead. It all depends on what our opponent does here, of course. It is a Hedron Crab to help with the mill. Can make landfall with Demolition Field, assuming that he doesn't have lands in hand. Yep, going for Demolition Field. So we will absolutely search up a land with this. That can just be a basic island. And then targeting himself with the mill on the Hedron Crab, as you would expect. Our Otawara costs 2 mana, so can't go for it here. So escaping the Uro for only 4 mana. We'll gain some life and draw a card. And then, yeah, rapid hybridization. Our opponent's still at 5 cards in hand. Going on to the Lityara, unfortunately, so that will draw us a card and lose us a life at least. And gets us into Necropotence. We're taking a lot of life as it is here, so not sure we're going to go after the Necropotence. Alright, draw into Vendilion Click. So I don't think I want to go for the card draw here. Losing 3 for a creature doesn't seem great either. Maybe just 1 more creature and a token. It will be a treasure token for the rest of the game, I imagine. So our opponent will lose a life to the Obyra as well. And let's go Command Tower. And we'll lose the Frog Lizard to the Crippling Fear, but I think it's worth doing. Then we'll be able to hold up 3 mana for the Vendilion Click on our opponent's draw phase. In fact, we might as well swing in first. Okay, throwing Uro in the way straight away means that we can go for the Crippling Fear. Either way, we get the 3 damage through to our opponent, or we get 3 damage onto this and get to kill it off with the Crippling Fear, which was obviously the aim there. So go for the board wipe here. And none of our opponent's creatures are of the chosen type, so we get to wipe out everything there. Yeah, so going through to the draw step of our opponent. Need to put a stop on our opponent's draw step. See what they draw into, and then we will attempt the Vendilion Click so that we can put something back. Noteworthy that our opponent's commander is in the bin, as you would expect. So that enters, bleeds our opponent again, and 6 cards in our opponent's hand. Alright, so there is a Collector Oath we don't really care about. Bramble Familiar is decent, but it's a mana sink. Tireless Provisioner. Curse of the Swine is probably what we go after because it dodges our card draw effect. Virtue of Knowledge is good. And Trench Behemoth is good as well. So I think we have to go for Curse of the Swine, get rid of that. We know our opponent doesn't have any counter magic in hand at least. Unless he just drew into some. So Tireless Provisioner comes down, likely going to make treasures with that. Drops landfall into it. And then Uro being escaped once again, we can go for the Otawara onto that if we're desperate. They will draw another card. Managed to make landfall with it, so that is another treasure. So our opponent going for the Virtue of Knowledge, straight into the enchantment, and that is basically a Panharmonicon. Alright, and we can get into nothing but lands here, so just make a treasure. Need to be really careful of life at this point. Drop the Cavern of Souls, because we are up against a blue player. Obvious the creature type that we name with that. And we're going for a Kindred Discovery, I think. And that means that we can hold up the Otawara still and bounce our opponent's commander. Main Fairy again with the enchantment. Okay, and Otawara only costs 1 now. Bouncing the Uro now means that we can turn more things in sideways, so I think we're fine to just do it now, as opposed to on our opponent's turn. We are opening ourselves up to the Tireless Provisioner swinging in towards us. Maybe our opponent can get some haste in a Lightning Greaves, but yeah, I think we just need to draw as many cards and deal as much damage as possible here. So Kindred Discovery, doing what Kindred Discovery has so often done on this channel. Draw us a bunch of lands. Is not often what it does. Alright, so trading the Tireless Provisioner away is fine. Maybe looking for a board wipe, our opponent. We lose a life and draw thanks to Tegwill. And that gets us into our own Glenelendra Archmage, which we can't afford. I'll go for the Winged Words, because maybe we'll be able to get into some free counter magic that could protect our board here. Alright, that is into Talisman of Dominance and Seagate Restoration, so just discarding lands to hand size here. Our opponent can't escape Uro from his hand, so just dropping that into play again. It will trigger twice, so our opponent gaining life, which is really difficult when we're in a bleed deck. They had 10 more life than they normally would have done anyway, and then gaining life against a deck that wants to drain you out is making things even more difficult, of course. It is noteworthy that an oath could switch off our treasures that we're making as well, but our opponent's decided against that. Escaping the Uro again is going to gain 12 life in total this turn. Scavenging Ooze, not particularly interested in, although it is more life gain for our opponent. We don't have a means of mass reanimation in this deck. Collector Oath means that I'm not going to bother playing the Talisman out next turn, or making a treasure with the black market connections, so maybe just make a creature with that, although we're doing pretty poorly on life here, for obvious reasons. Needed to sink a bunch in order to actually get back into the game. But hell, our opponent's brought a pretty strong deck for us here, so let's just play straight into all the spiky plays here. Take 3 more life, drain our opponent. We draw a card, even with the tokens, with the Kindred Discovery. Gets us into another land. That is a duel, so we'll just play that straight away. And we'll only have 1 mana held up for after the Seagate Restoration, but that could be the play. We're going to draw cards when we swing in as well. So maybe just swing in with 3 creatures and see what we get. Don't want to lose the Shapeshifter for nothing. None of our opponent's creatures have reach, so we draw 3 more cards, and actually, yeah, during playtesting I was drawing a lot of lands there too, and I reduced the number of lands to 34. Maybe I have to reduce it even further. Anyway, deal more damage to our opponent. And that means the Urza's Incubator becomes more relevant to us, so yeah, maybe getting that down would be good here. Makes our fairies cost 2 generic less, so then we can go for Prowl with the Latchkey Fairy, making it only cost a blue mana. And this will draw us a card when it enters, both from its own ability and from the Kindred Discovery. And bleed our opponent again for whatever that's worth. Okay, gets us into Rankle. Our opponent going for Scavenging Ooze onto the Lityara in response, that's fine. Alright, there's a Bitter Blossom as well, which will only cost us 1 mana, but puts us on a hell of a clock with the black market connections in play. So we definitely want the Glenelendra Archmage, and we'll probably just leave it there. So we'll draw another card to that, and that is a Hypnotic Sprite, which will counter a spell, and it's also a flying fairy. Yeah, so probably just leave it there. I can't see myself getting down the Bitter Blossom, although it is more card draw. Whatever, let's just go for it, just for the fun of it. Not the right move, but we'll do it. And then discard some useless cards to hand size. Necropotence, Talisman. The fetches aren't of any use to us either, although we've got Urborg now, so we could tap them for mana if we wanted to. Argument to be made for us just holding up double blue for 2 activations of Glenelendra. But yeah, it's always fun to drain our opponents with Bitter Blossom. If it wasn't for the fact that we had Kindred Discovery in play to draw cards off it, then I don't think I would have bothered getting it down there. Okay, Bane of Progress. Of course, they've got the creature means of dealing with our stuff. Does switch off the black market connections at least, and we do have a means of card draw with the Seagate Restoration. They'll blow up their own enchantment here. That seems like a bit of a desperation play to me. Our fairy died in the form of the Bitter Blossom, so we lose a life and draw again. Okay, an Arcane Denial. Bunch of plus counters on the Bane of Progress, so we do have to worry about these big creatures flying in now. I mean, flying in figuratively, obviously they don't have flying. And they still don't have reach on anything. We do have haste on our Rankle. They gain more life with the Uro. I managed to get into another land, that is an Obyra. So they can make multiple land drop with that if they want to. Instead going for Cyclonic Rift. So that's what the Glenelendra Archmage is for. Creature died under our control, so we lose a life and draw. Persist brings the Glenelendra Archmage back in, and drained our opponent in the process. Draws us into another land. And yeah, looks like we might actually be able to get our opponent here. The Shapeshifters are only really of use to us. Do we want to go in the red zone with those? Let's see here, we've got 3, 4, 5, 9, 13, 15 damage on our opponent. And then 19 with this. So yeah, taking 6 isn't great here. I think we do just have to gang up on the Uro, even if it does help them escape it. This does lose us more life, but we lose more life to Uro in the long run. And we'll obviously draw more cards. Tegwill's done some work here. It's probably actually a better commander than the Obyra, although Obyra would have been better if our opponent wasn't drawing into cards. Dowsing Dagger is probably a bit too late, although I have high hopes for this in a flying deck, because for 4 mana you can flip it round straight away, so can we afford to lose the 1 mana is the question. Just drawing into yet another land. I think we're best just going for the Rankle and holding up counter magic, and holding back blockers as well. So that means that going for the Dowsing Dagger this turn would be a good idea as well. Although, yeah, it means that we've only got 3 mana on 1 land. We'll go for the Rankle here and we can go for an Edict effect. Drain our opponent and we do not draw a card anymore. We've got a land to make here, so we can actually go for Urborg. Then go for Dowsing Dagger, flip it round. We've got 3 mana for something like this. And then we can go for Glenelendra Archmage still, so I think it's fine to try and ramp here. Oh, and I totally forgot about the totally forgot about the Oath, so wasted mana there for no reason. Okay. Yeah, that could be game-changing. We've got the Glenelendra Archmage, so hopefully it doesn't matter, but yeah, totally forgot about that Oath. We'll go for the Rankle anyway, because we can have our opponent discard with that. Yeah, we'll just have to hold back chump blockers, I think. So just swinging in for 6. This can block the Oath, this can block the Scavenging Ooze and trade and we can replay it. This can chump the Bane. So yeah, we'll just swing in like this. Yeah, so definitely shouldn't have played the Dowsing Dagger there, obviously, and we could have done an Edict effect here. Probably got rid of the Oath is probably what they would have sacrificed. I imagine they're scared of Mass Reanimation here. So it's just each player discards a card. We're not bothered about that with this surplus of lands that we've got. And our opponent discarded the card we knew about, the Trench Behemoth. We will get rid of some lands here. So I'm just praying that we don't need 2 counter spells at this point, because of wasting that mana. It could have cost us the game, that. Been a fun one regardless though. I thought we stood no chance against our opponent whatsoever. So that is Fetch Quest. Put a creature, enchantment or land from amongst the 7 milled cards onto the battlefield. We'll just allow this. It might be bait for the Glenelendra. This could also hurt us though. Yeah, they've got cards like Summoner's Pact and stuff, so pretty strong one our opponent's playing. There's a Mana Breach as well. Wow. Yep, and they go for the Mana Breach. And then is Uro. They will bounce a land, but they're going to gain life again, which is... yeah, we're just trying to set up an Alpha Strike at this point, really. The one saving grace about playing against Simic is they don't have that many board wipes available to them. Getting into a land off the Uro, and that allows them into Sylvan Library, which will cost them life. It does mean that they can go for some kind of card filtering. I think we allow that as well. We're just saving Glenelendra for a board wipe, really. So it looks like we've managed to survive this turn. Bane of Progress swinging in, forcing us to block. Have to account for the fact that we're going to lose life as well. So that and that will trade them the Scavenging Ooze. So do we have them next turn if we just don't do that? 4, 8, 10, and 15 in the air. We lose a life, 4 life, and draw a card. Yeah, should be alright. This assumes that we don't have to sacrifice the Glenelendra Archmage. Alright, and they gain life to Scavenging Ooze, so we're forcing them to do that on the way out, when they might have wanted to hold up counter magic maybe. So we don't quite have them next turn, unfortunately. We draw into a Sol Ring. Alright, and that is a Wayfarer's Bauble, means that we're totally lacking on getting into fairies, unfortunately. So, we definitely want the Sol Ring down. No reason not to play that here. Oh yeah, there is, because of the the Collector Oath. I've forgotten about that twice in a row, so we lose out on a mana for no reason. Again, bounce the Urborg that I just wasted. We could just go for the Seagate Restoration. And if I get into a 2 mana fairy and a 1 mana fairy, I'll be annoyed because that could have won us the game. Yeah, let's just go into the red zone again. We've got 4 creatures to worry about now. So Obyra can be recast quite easily. Go with Rankle, Vendilion Click. We can... yeah, we can't take any further damage really. So I'm just going to turn everything in sideways here. Deal as much damage as possible. Rankle hits and we'll use it as a sack outlet. We'll draw a card as well. So that will be 1 life to that, 1 life to that. Might as well discard a card as well. And I'm just praying that we get into enough fairies to actually deal with our opponent here. So this thing is, it's whenever another fairy you control dies, so we won't draw a card if we sacrifice that, unfortunately. Just need one more fairy here. Discard a Misty Rainforest. Alright, and there's a Spell Stutter, so get rid of the Vendilion Click. And that takes us down to 1, getting to the Fierce Guardianship. And with that, we just go for the Hypnotic Sprite. Have to bounce a land back to our hand, don't mind that at this point. And our opponent was down to 1, so I thought they were going to be at 2 there, but obviously I miscalculated, so they were down to 1, and the Hypnotic Sprite did it. If it wasn't for that, the Spell Stutter Sprite would have done it as well, so yeah, we played that really clunky towards the end there. I wasted some turns, or some mana at least, in the end, and don't suppose we necessarily had any business winning that game, but yeah, apparently Blue-Black Fairies is still pretty decent in 1v1, even when you're playing up against stronger opponents, so hopefully you all enjoyed that one. I've been really enjoying all the new Blue-Black Fairies, so if you'd like to see more from this deck, then you can look at the deck list in the description, and leave a thumbs up and comments on the video if you want me to play it again. Hopefully I won't play as clunky next time. This was my first time playing it. I'm tribalkai. Thank you for watching.